I was the best sales guy in the history of the universe because I was always giving
So you
them
were lying?
Yeah, not really. I was saying I have a 100% hit rate. I think you need someone to repeat that to you all the time, Björn, so it's going to be me. Hello, bubble, 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 bubble. Do you think they recover their resources?
I have no clue. What do you think?
I guess at least they reuse the water.
Do you think there's lithium inside the water?
I don't know. Did you press record?
I think so. I was thinking you did.
Oh. Hi. Welcome to the show.
Hey, welcome.
Björn.
Hi, Antoine. We are talking today about a very interesting topic.
Yeah,
you
actually,
teased at that a little bit.
Yeah, it's a topic which is really, really exciting if you ask me. It's a topic we scratched in the past. It's a topic of lithium recovery. And I think we touched it, but we will go in depth today. But before that, we have your editorial, which is about?
I was thinking about all the reports we get every month about markets, about the ZLD market, MBR market, and containerized market. You know that. And you rely on that, and I will give you the proof that they're all shit.
Okay, so we just decided that I rely on that. I might have to disagree, but not today, because I'm in a good mood, and that good mood is going to transport into my top 3, which will cover 3 fascinating stories, positive stories, about the use of water networks and wastewater networks.
What happened to you? Did you drink a little bit from the water?
Actually, no, but we have a surprise at the end of the show. We have a special guest.
Really?
Yeah, which is coming to pitch to us.
What?
And it's not the bubble fish.
It's not the bubblefish.
No.
Oh, I'm really excited. So stay tuned.
And let's go for his tutorial. So I just butchered my first introduction, so I'll be much faster than in my first attempt. And I'll say very simply, Björn, the city is yours.
Thank you very much, Antoine, and thanks for the tutorial. I would like to take a topic today, which we teased at, or let's say we discussed that a little bit 2 months ago. Numbers from reports from analytic firms, so market numbers. My question really is, do you really believe the market numbers you get from reports from Frost and Sullivan and from all the others, market and research, and how they name? And I will give you some examples for that, why I don't really trust them. Let's take an example. I always have the feeling that whenever I look into something, 2 months ago, we talked about containerized. So I looked a little bit into the market, and I always got the same number, that the market valuation for 2025, 3.6 billion. All same numbers. And I was thinking to myself, if you and I would go to IFAD separately, and you would ask 100 people where they come from, I would ask 100 people where they come from, would we get the same number? Would we really get the same number? Most probably not. You would get a number, I would get a number, but the trend would be somehow right. So that means most probably 80% are from Germany. And then we get this curve. I don't get why they get all the same number. Are they asking really the same people? Most probably not. Most probably someone put some effort in that study, and all the others, they are just purchasing this, put another label on that, and sell it to the market in just a different style. And that also makes me think, because I get contacted by consulting companies like Boston Consulting or KPMG, and they want to know about the water market, the water industry, how it works, evaluation, things like that. Just in the way how they ask the questions, I realize in a minute that they have no clue about the market. They put APCs and OEMs and tech suppliers together, and they say, well, this APC, he is producing membranes because he is offering MBR. But it doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. And my favorite example here is always, if you look into ZLD, Google ZLD market, and you will get a couple of reports, and where you can have the first page, or you can just look into that. And I always get frustrated if I see that, because you get all the different companies who are in that market. I have them here. Alfa Laval, Aquarion AG, Aquatech International, Envitech, Acorn, and so on and so on. H2O GmbH, Safbon, Veolia. They're all the market leader for ZLD. But I tell you the truth. Aquarion AG is the umbrella organization for Hagen-Dazs, for HNE. They never built any ZLD plant. Sure, there were plans to do so, and there's a market opportunity, things like that, and they would to do that. But since my time, 2 years ago, they never built any plan. H2O GmbH is a great company. They have vacuum distillation. Their biggest plant is 30,000 cubic meters a year.
Good one.
And they are the market leaders, guys. So all I'm saying is, who to blame for? Is it more the analytic firm, or is it more us who believe in that? Or you believe in that because you told me that you believe on the Frost Sullivan. No, even I did. Even I did some years ago. The point is, these kind of reports, they are all wrong. Maybe they give you an idea where somehow an idea where this goes through, but never believe really everything. Judge everything. Judge the numbers, judge the market sizes, judge the players, please.
I think to a certain extent, you're beating an open door, because I don't know anyone who ever told me a market study is fully accurate. No one, I hope, believes that. Then I'll give you an example, which I think I already gave on that water show, but it was a while ago. It is, let's take wastewater treatment. Let's say from Frost & Sullivan, I give a call to Veolia and I say, did you sell that wastewater treatment plant? Yes, of course. How much was it? Well, 30 million. Okay. Then you give a call to Veolia Water Technologies and you say, did you do the MBR inside? Yeah. How much would it cost? Oh, 6 million. So now it's 36 million. And then you give a call to Envirochemie, where we are today. Say, did you do the flotation? Oh, yes, we did the flotation. How much was it? 1.2 million. Now it's that same plant is worth 37.2 million, and so far and so on. At the end of the day, that plant is not going to be worth its real worth. It's going to be worth 3, 4, 5 times, because at some point they give me a call and say, did your company do the ball valves? Yes, they did the ball valve. And then you recount all the ball valves everywhere. So yes, those numbers are wrong, and we all know they are wrong. That's the first step. Then there's a second story, which I believe I already said on that microphone. I used in my Suez times, I used to get a call every 3 months of the same market research company, which was asking me, so how are you since the last time we spoke? What are the projects you're working on? And what's the size of the market and this and that? And guess what? Every single time they called me, I was the best sales guy in the history of the universe, because I was always giving
So you
them
were
like,
lying?
Yeah, not really. I was saying I have a 100% hit rate. So it means that if I was offering on a plant which would be worth 12 millions, but which at the end of the day, because you negotiate, because you reduce the scope, would be maybe 9 millions, and which I would have maybe a 20% chance of winning, I would still tell them it's a 12 million plant. So if they gave the same call to my competitors 3, 4, 5 times, they would estimate the market to be 60 million, when in fact there was only one 9 million plant. And if they gave me a call and then 3 months later they gave me the same call, chances are that same plant is still under development. So I would give them the same number several times, which they would add up. So you're right. And third and last example, which goes into your direction, and then I tell you also on what I disagree. I think you and me are in that same circle of these consulting companies, which want to have half an hour of your time or 1 hour of your time, and they come with questions, and I can totally subscribe to what you said, which is
they ask questions.
No clue. It's like,
they ask questions which make absolutely no sense, and sometimes I write this in. Your question doesn't make any sense. What do you think will happen? They will not contact me.
Yeah. Yeah. It means at some point, if you get paid 250 or 300 euro or 400 euro for half an hour, you'd rather tell them what they want to hear. And that means you are adding confusion to the confusion. So all of that, right. Now you also said something about the tendency. And I think that's the important thing. If you take a market study and you take it at face value, it's pretty limited. Now, I would believe that serious market research companies would have correcting factors. They would know that if they call 3, 4 competitors, which give the numbers, they would divide it by a ratio and assume that they are like me and that they are lying and saying that they have 100% hit rate. So maybe the numbers aren't...
Didn't we talk recently to Christopher, and he came with a correction factor and something like that? Something rings a bell about this topic. He said something that he was somehow...
Christopher Guesson, when he was on my podcast, admitted very openly that on the desalination market, it goes in waves, and that the last time it peaked, they had not anticipated right. It was a peak and that it would be dropping, and they were modeling a growth which then never happened, and that people anticipated that growth
something like
and
this,
did the investment for that growth. And that's what makes me say that some of these research companies are also pretty good in what they do, because honestly, it takes a lot of guts when you're GWI to come tell on my recorded microphone, which will be then streamed out to the water industry, that you screwed. And it also shows that they are working continuously to better the models and to try to anticipate all of that. And then no one is able to read the future, but still they can give you a better estimate of the future than you would by just doing like that.
Okay, got it. But let's say you work in business development. I did as well. So, and there must be something we have in our pockets if it comes to the discussion, where do we go next? But wouldn't it be better if we have our own research? For sure, maybe not as big as the Frost and Sullivan one, but why not going out to really to clients, or let's say take a handful of people, put them on the phone, you call these guys from the industry where we want to go to and have your own research. It's the same with marketing. No one from marketing I know in the industry has ever talked to the client and say, okay, where do you get the information from? And they ask 100 different companies. And then they all say this. And then you put all your efforts in marketing to that direction. It's the same with business development. No, in fact, we are taking these reports, pay thousands of euros and say, okay, that is where I have to go to. I have to go to China because China is the biggest market and it's a double-digit increase in market revenue. I have to be there because this report is saying that. And these are the market players, so we have to beat them. We rely quite often, we use these kind of reports to justify whether we do something with our companies, and we do it in the wrong direction. And the same is with the investors. Hopefully they are a little bit smarter and they know that they are wrong. But even their analysis, there must be a basis for them.
Björn, did you ever meet an investor or a CEO who told you that he believed the business plan?
Well, I know CEOs who came up with these kind of reports and saying, well, this is now on your direction.
Maybe they say that, but I'm pretty sure in their decision making, it's only one part of the decision. You would be surprised at what I'm going to be saying.
That's the joke.
But I think you're seeing the word in black and white and that it is shades of gray. I think you need someone to repeat that to you all the time, Björn. So it's going to be me. I think you're right, especially when you're in business development. I can tell you what I do is that I am trying to do my own research, which means I'm triangulating. I need to start from somewhere, and sometimes there's a market I have a good grasp on it, and then I would directly go to the market and I would try to assess the opportunity myself. Sometimes I'm going on a market where I have no clue how big it is. That's why I have a number for containerized, because we noticed that we had a good fit with containerized. We had some very good customers. We were really doing great business in a good win-win. Customers which are happy and we are happy. So we thought, oh, that's so good that we can't stop here. We have to find a way to multiply them. If you type containerized water solution on Google, well, everybody does that. As you said with ZLD, everybody claims to do it. So,
and then they are part of the list.
So Google is limiting here. So part of my decision process was to acquire some research left and right, also look at what GWI does, also look at what BlueTech did in terms of research report, and triangulate the sources to get a list of companies that would be interesting to talk with. But now it is lame if you stop here. The next step and the real work starts here. It means there is a very cool book written by Fitzpatrick is his name. I can't remember the surname. And the book is called The Mom Test. The entire book, basically all the chapters after chapter 1 are to explain you how to do it. But chapter 1 explains you the methodology, which is how do you write a questionnaire and an inquiry that even your mom cannot lie to you. And if you apply that methodology, you have your targets because you've done your pre-work, but then you have to do that second step where you have to go seek honest market return.
Let me summarize that a little bit, or let's say, my idea is really, I would love to encourage people, if they really want to go to a market, which they should because they want to expand their business or whatever, go out there, call a couple of your end customers, your potential customers, and just call them. And that is the biggest issue. People are afraid still today
to
call people and ask about whatever they want to know. And that is the biggest pain. Today, everything is really on, I'm just sending an email. And it didn't answer me, sorry.
People love really, talking about themselves, so don't be shy. Reach out to them. They will love to explain you what they do.
Don't rely only on these kind of reports. That's all I want to say. If you just take a report, you can grab one of these reports about ZLD, MBR, membranes, whatever. They are all not correct. So take that maybe as a hint, but go out and call the people.
I have a last thought for you, Björn, on that one. Sometimes I would be happy today to do some studies, to go to university for 3 years and learn something. When I was 20, the last thing I wanted to do is to keep studying. I wanted to go out and do something else.
True.
And when you're a master's student in his last year, sometimes you get tasked with that stupid thing of please do a market research. And as a student in his last year of master's, it is the kind of things you hate to the guts and which you end up doing like the faster the better. In the retrospect, that is probably the best thing you can do to get a glimpse of that market, because it gets you to speak with that market.
Exactly.
So I know it's boring. I know it's not the most sexy part. Maybe you can be like me and cheat and pretend that you're doing a podcast so that people are open to discuss with you. I would really double down on your advice, Björn. Go out and do it.
Go out and do it. Thank you very much for being this time very polite to me and agreeing with me. That was a nice editorial, wasn't it?
Let's see if we can keep that mood for the second part in my top 3. For my top 3 this month, people have told me last month that I was maybe a bit too aggressive. So I thought this month I'm going to be...
Who was it? Who said this?
Well, I heard that. I thought I'm going to be a bit more positive and tell about 3 positive stories which I've seen across the world. Some of them are not new, but I think would be a good example of things which we might be well versed to develop further in the future. So
again, 3 positive stories about water.
About
or just positive stories.
No, it's positive stories about something
about the
specific.
marriage somewhere.
It is positive stories about clever uses of water networks and specific water networks. And my number 3 is in France. And usually I'm the one shitting on my own country, but for this time I will be positive. I will even be positive about the city which I hate to the guts, which is Paris. So they're not the only ones. There are many other places in the world which start doing that. But Paris has put a system in their sewer because they noticed that their sewer is one of the largest in the world. I mean, one of the oldest in the world as well. And that it is probably underused and under-leveraged in terms of what it could be doing. And so they've put now 2 of these systems, but the second is just one system. The first is pretty spectacular because just underneath the city hall of Paris, they've installed a system in the sewer with a heat exchanger, and they are collecting heat from the sewer and they are heating the building of the town hall of Paris. So one of the most prestigious buildings in Paris. 30% of the energy of heating comes from the sewer. And that is a clever way to tap into the heat trapped in the sewers, which you see sometimes in wastewater treatment plants where they're doing heat exchanger and sending a bit back some heat to the neighborhoods. But at that scale and in such a prestigious place, imagine entering that beautiful building and thinking that the heat you're feeling comes from shit.
Yeah, I mean, that means your president organizing the heat in the building for the secretary if he goes to the toilet.
The town hall of Paris, it's not the president, it's the mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo. But yeah, you're right. So you're shitting, you're helping the town hall.
How is that from the technical perspective working?
Well, you have some strains which are removing the big parts, and then you're driving this polluted dark water or gray water because you have the strains.
Well, it's still black water, but separated from...
And then it's a heat exchanger, which means the difficulty...
Is that enough?
It's a heat pump, so you're taking up...
I mean, we are delivering somehow our P is around 38 degrees.
In terms of temperature, there's 2 elements at play, which is what we are giving out, but also the fact that there are lots of organics inside, which means that there's a fermentation at play. What happens in the digester happens to a certain scale in the sewer.
It's not only in heat exchanger. There's also a kind of anaerobic.
No. It is fully a heat exchanger. I'm just saying that the sewer itself, given it's a slow flow, it is a covered thing. It's also building some heat. I mean, historically, if you look at one of the most famous books of France, which is Les Misérables from Victor Hugo, there's a full section of that book which happens in the sewer of Paris, because at that time, if you were poor and you had a hard time finding a place to live, living in the sewer was pretty convenient because it would be warm, you would be protected from the rain and all that stuff. So there is heat in those networks, and I never took the time, and it's my mistake, to double check that calculation from Aaron Tartakovsky, but he shared that on my podcast when he was my guest. He said that according to his calculation, if you take the heat of the wastewater in the US and you take what you could extract, you could power all the electric vehicles on the roads of the US. There is an untapped potential with the heat of our sewers. And actually, I met with Hunziker Betatech, so engineering office in Switzerland, and they did a study which in between, I think they published. Their study was looking at what happens if you tap into the heat of the networks, because they were trying to double check if there's no negative effect. Because if you go to a wastewater treatment plant in the winter, it works a bit less good than in the summer because it's a bit too cold. So they were afraid that if you take out heat out of the sewer, it would be having a bad effect.
Even more worse. Yeah.
But what they proved is that it was really neglectable because the little heat you're taking out with your heat exchanger is nothing compared to the big mass of water which is going to a wastewater treatment plant. So that sounds like a clever thing, which comes with its limitation because you need to backwash your heat exchanger because it can get clogged and stuff like that. But 30% of the Thornhill in Paris. So if you ever visit, you have to feel that special thing in the air. So that's my number 3. Number 2 takes us to Hong Kong. I remember when I was in Hong Kong, it's a while ago, I had to go to the toilet at some point, and I was very surprised to see that the toilets were sealed. It was the first time in my life that I saw that the flush was sealed. You could not open it. It was impossible. There was like a lock. So I thought maybe they had a bad experience in that hotel and that's the reason why they put a lock on it. Okay.
You could not open what? Where the water was stored?
Yeah. You cannot open the reservoir of water. Yeah. It is really locked. So I thought that's a weird hotel, but who knows, maybe that's the norm. And then I went on to with my days in my week, and then I went to the toilet again in a different place, and it was sealed as well. So, twice in a row, but why not? Maybe it's a custom here. And at some point I raised the question, said, why are they all sealed? And the reason why they are all sealed, it's because the flush of the toilets in Hong Kong is done with seawater. Meaning that inside the city of Hong Kong, there are 2 networks. You have the potable water network and you have a network of seawater, which is there to flush the toilets because they were facing some water scarcity. Plus Hong Kong is a very dense city with limited access to water. So one clever way, instead of doing potable water to flush the toilets, it comes with other challenges because
you double network. That is the issue.
It's pretty corrosive and it places a special burden on your wastewater treatment plant because at the inlet of that wastewater treatment plant, you have partially salted water, which means that the bacteria you have inside your activated sludge, which they have there, it's special bacteria, which develops in time. They didn't do like special seedings of the bacteria, but it is not the same biology than the one you would see in a regular wastewater treatment plant if we go out in Europe or something like that.
But that reminds me a little bit to the grey water in general, right? The grey water is a perfect concept to use used water from the shower or from the hand basin to get reused to use it for the toilet. So it's a perfect system. The issue is for existing building, you need a double network because if you have a new build, then you can organize it, right? You can organize it, you collect that, and then you transport that back, and then you flush the toilet. But if you have a building like the one we are here in, right, which is a little bit older, and if you want to have a grey water system over there, it doesn't work really. Or let's say it can work, but it costs a lot. To open all the walls, to put another pipe into that, doesn't make any sense from the commercial perspective. So that means for me, all the hotels, so let's say all the new buildings in Hong Kong, they are directly equipped with a double network that they can flush the toilet with that.
And that started in the 70s. So a lot of the buildings got equipped over time.
I know, for instance, that in the UK, especially in London, that all the new buildings, they get an award if you have, these kind of windows, these kind of solar panels and things like that. And then you get a kind of award and then you get funding, blah, blah, blah. And one of that is really that you have a grey water system. So you put a grey water system inside the basement, and then you get the water and you put it back to the toilet, and you get another star and you get another funding. So it makes sense for new building, but for existing, it's still a big issue.
Sometimes it's even mandatory nowadays. If you look at San Francisco, Austin, a bit of portion of New York, now you have to have this grey water reuse inside the building, assuming the building has a certain size. And if you don't know where to fit that, you should reach out to a piping company, but that was a free advertising space. No, but you're right. It is more something for the new one. So you were speaking of double networks. And actually, that leads me to my number 1. Because my number 1 is not a double network. It's a triple network. And actually, it's a system called Aquarevo, which is something which is developed in the new suburbs of Melbourne in Australia. What they have is that they have one potable line, so the traditional line, one reclamation water line, so that's water which goes to the wastewater treatment plant, gets treated, and then comes back in a specific network. And they have a third network for stormwater. So they really have these 3 different networks and each is fit for purpose. Now, Aquarevo is, let's say, the latest development of a trend which is much older in Australia, because in Australia, they have this tradition of the pink pipe. So they have pink pipes And you see it a bit everywhere. Like you have a garden where you have the water flowing to the house. And then in the garden, you have a pink pipe coming out of the ground with a pink water meter. And that water is actually reused wastewater. So they have a specific network for reclaimed wastewater. When they started doing that, the promise was you're going to get water cheaper than the potable water. Well, that didn't hold the test of time. Nowadays, that water is almost the same price than potable water. But if there's a drought, which didn't happen for some years, but happened during the Millennium drought, for instance, in Melbourne, and will probably happen again in the future. If there's a drought, you are not authorized to water your garden with potable water, but you will never be prevented from watering your garden with your pink
So you
pipe.
had to use the other one, the
Yes.
reclamation water.
That's the interest to getting
Reclamated water.
to get that reclamation water. And I think that's an interesting best practice, which is really
So you get 2 pipes to your whole house.
Yep.
That means you get a fresh water and you get a reclamation water. So you get it from the utility. It's kind of wastewater, which is reused,
Yes.
kind of from black.
Yep.
Okay.
You have actually two Australian companies which are almost a 50-50 in the market. One company does the really small developments up to the middle size, and the other company does the middle size up to the big size.
And how does it work? I mean, I get the 2 pipes, right? So I have my house. I build a house and I have these 2 pipes, and for sure I take the fresh water for showers and hand basin, and I take the pink one. Is it the pink one?
Yep.
Yeah. I take the pink one for my toilet to flush the toilet
Yep.
and for irrigation purposes.
Yep.
So that means they have a centralized kind of gray water system. I
It's-
know
it's a bit more complex.
it's overused, the word gray water, right? It's not really gray water, but the system, the idea with the gray water inside your house is that to reuse the water. And here you get it centralized.
My reaction was not for gray, but for centralized. It's not centralized. They have centralized potable water. So basically, when you build 20 new houses, you connect the 20 new houses to the existing central network of potable water. But you build a specific small-scale wastewater treatment plant, which you put at the center of that new neighborhood. I mean, you connect all the houses
It's wastewater.
to the wastewater,
Yeah.
and then it gets treated, and then it goes back to the houses, which means it's centralized potable water and decentralized reclaimed water, but decentralized not in your basement, decentralized in your neighborhood.
Yeah. Okay.
So it might be a continual, like what we've seen 2 months ago,
Yeah.
or it might be a small building with a small. Usually, it's an MBR followed by a disinfection,
Yeah.
and then it goes back as reclaimed water. And there's even in the city of Sydney, they are doing sewer mining.
What?
The first time ever I saw that. Pretty conceptual. They're saying some of these buildings are not equipped to reuse water, but the new ones can be equipped with an overcapacity compared to the size of the building. So instead of just reusing the wastewater which is produced in the building, they might as well pump water from the sewer and reuse it within the building. They're using the sewer to mine water and to use it as a source of water to feed their MBR and then UV, and then being reused in the building or around the building to irrigate the plants in the
Who's
city.
operating all these things? Is it operated by the utility?
Not so much, but that's also
Because if you say, for instance, that they have a decentralized wastewater treatment plant somewhere in the neighborhood and they get these pink water from there, who's operating this decentralized one? Who's responsible for that? The neighborhood?
It can be, on very rare cases, the neighborhoods, but that's not the common thing. The common thing would more be that you have some purely operating companies, and you have also the companies building those stuff, which then also operate it, like a BOT or a DBO. Or I mean, if you recall what Baldassar said.
Yeah, but who's paying that? I mean, is it even then, if it is a company from the industry, who's paying for that? For sure, in the end, the neighborhood, but let's say...
It is financed by the building company. Like when you build the house, as part of the asset within the house, you will also sell then to your end customers the fact that you have a double system of piping networks. And so it is part of the house package.
But the city has nothing to do with that.
Keep in mind, it's Australia. Australia is a very liberal country where you don't have that much coming from the states and from the federal state and from the local states. It's really a lot of delegation of public service. So it is not that surprising that the central utilities don't do so much with that, even to the point that when these companies started mining the sewer, the central utilities have reacted by changing their tariffication. Because, when you do your tariffication, there's a fixed thing for the fact that you are linked to the network, and there's a variable thing, which is how much water you discharge.
Sure.
And they increased the fixed charge so that if you mine the sewer, it's not that interesting because anyways you have to pay for your connection. But still, in terms of sustainability,
where does the water from the decentralized wastewater treatment plant goes to? To the centralized one? Or is it 100% recovery?
No, it's not 100% recovery. Most of the time they aim for 50% recovery, sometimes above that.
And the rest goes to the local sewage network?
It can go to the local sewage network. Sometimes they have special discharge or special ways to...
Or they truck it. That would be the alternative.
No, I don't think they truck it. I think it's just a matter of doing a smaller sized network from there to the traditional one for real the deep black stuff which comes out.
But even here, it just works, this pink model, just for new retails, right?
It works much better for new ones, clear. Yeah. There is always a possibility to a certain extent to refurbish if the building has been designed rightfully with some free space where you can put some pipes. But yeah, you're right. It's mostly for new builds. That's why it lends itself pretty nicely for developing countries because they don't have the existing infrastructure, but also expansion countries. Because Australia, all the big cities of Australia expect to double their population over the next 20 years.
Well, I think they have enough space, huh? Do they?
They have space. Sometimes they don't have water. So they are solving the water problem while leveraging the space. So 3 positive stories. And I think also 3 things which can be inspiring because I guess mining the sewer for heat is something which you can be doing pretty everywhere. So it's a matter of economics of it. It would be interesting to do an economic calculation. The seawater special thing is an additional network and the same for the pink additional network. But still, it's something when you're building new, why not thinking of that in the first place?
The question is, where can you really apply that? If it is new, new area, but let's say if there's just one new house over there, then it is tricky. If you build NEOM, for instance.
If you're adding new houses inside an existing place, it can be a way to alleviate the burden on the network. Maybe the network is already at capacity. If you put a reuse system in the underground of that building, maybe you can also limit the impact it has on the network. So there are different shades and different scales at which it works.
But that would be a little bit go against all these grey water companies which come to the market because they want to sell their centralized private household solutions.
I think it's complementary. It depends. If you're in a new neighborhood, it would go for this decentralized lot. If you're one building inside an existing township, then it would make sense to have something in your basement. And that somehow lends itself to resource recovery, which makes for a kind of smooth transition to our deep dive.
Do you want to use water responsibly for industrial processes? For more than 45 years, Envirochemie plans, constructs and operates water and wastewater treatment systems. These include energy and resource-efficient solutions for water recycling, water reuse or for the treatment of processed water, cooling water or wastewater, and for resource recovery. In terms of plant operation, Envirochemie offers comprehensive services, operation management, contracting and water treatment chemicals. Particularly practical for plant operation and optimization are the services provided by the Water Expert digital service platform, which gives operators a simple plant overview at any time. The water treatment experts develop various technologies and water treatment chemicals in their process engineering labs and technology center. Envirochemie delivers water technology that is made in Germany throughout the world. Envirochemie is a member of the Enviro Water Group, a strong network of companies with specialists in the solution of a broad range of requirements for sustainable water treatment.
Okay, so at that stage, I forgot to push a button on my microphone, so it's not recording anymore. I'm really sorry about that. I'm going to patch whatever I can, but you're going to notice the difference.
So the link to resource recovery, I know it's a topic we've covered not so long ago on that microphone, you and me, but this time we said we want to focus on one specific resource and the recovery on that specific resource. And when you look at it, you might be wondering, why is that even a topic for the water show? Because that resource is lithium. Well, it is a topic for the water show because lithium on Earth exists under 2 forms, whether it is dissolved in water or it is in rocks, which you then crush with acid and ultimately wash with water.
That's what they do in Australia, right? In Australia, I think it's more this way, and Southern America is more the other. It's chemicals.
If you want to directly attack with Australia, what they do is even crazier, is that they crush the rock, put it into boats and send it to China, and then China deals with it.
Okay, so they have cheaper workers or what?
The full lithium value chain is really developed in China. But let's go into that in a second. So we thought it's interesting for the water industry because it sounds like the new Eldorado. If you're an ion exchange company, if you're a membrane company, those technologies are really getting lots of attention from lots of people, which are dealing with two of the three main ways to extract lithium, which is the evaporation ponds and the direct lithium extraction.
Is there a bubble for the water industry? Because everybody is striving for that. Everybody is talking about lithium. And we all know. We know lithium for this thing. We need lithium most probably for the cameras. We need lithium for all the stuff we have here. And for sure, for all your future electric cars may have. Is there a bubble? I tell you one thing. I was not sure. I know that you are more the expert in lithium and you have digged into that market more. And I was thinking to myself, okay, how can I figure out? Because to extract lithium is one thing, but that doesn't mean that this lithium can be used directly for my iPad. You need a kind of refinery to process it in a way that really this company can use that. And just in January this year, another factory came up in Brandenburg. Just last year, end of last year, another big factory came up in Bitterfeld, which is one of the biggest chemical parks we have here in Germany. And you see all these kind of refineries are coming up where they process the lithium to the lithium the industry need to put it in the battery. So again, is there a bubble or is there really a huge wave coming up to us?
I'll quote you. I won't give his name. It would be, I didn't ask him if I can use his name, so I won't quote the name. I discussed with someone working for one of the big water guys, which I noticed changed his job title on LinkedIn to extraction of precious resources such as lithium. First I thought, oh, he changed company, but then I looked at it closer and didn't change company, was still working for the same company, but looking into that. So I just asked him, so what's the trick? And what he told me is that, the water business is a shitty business where you get 2, 3, 4% margin at best. So yes, we're interested in a 20 to 30% margin business. And when you look at it that way, it's not a bubble, it's just common sense. Our industry can be adding so much value to that frenzy around the lithium-ion batteries and the EV vehicles and the electrification of our world. I think you gave 7 months ago, that must have been 3 or 4 months ago on that microphone, you explained us the price of lithium.
There was a peak with 72,000 euros a kilo or ton.
It has been multiplied by 5 in 1 year. The question is it going to rise to the sky? At some point will
it's going down.
It's a cycle.
I checked, I think 2 months ago, beginning of the year, I checked a little bit the numbers and it's no longer at 72,000. It's far below, it's somewhere in the 60s.
So that flat tendency you see is the definition of far below, according to Björn.
That doesn't mean that it can't go up again, right? Maybe we haven't seen the real peak.
So when you look at the rationale of it, the price is one of the reasons, but it's not the only reason. Actually, today, it's rock mining and evaporation ponds. So rock mining, I guess we get pretty easily what it is. It is rocks which you crush, which you put into solution, and then you extract the lithium. That's pretty clear what it is. Evaporation ponds, it's a bit like these places where you produce salt. You take water, which is rich in lithium, you put it in big lakes, you let it evaporate, and what comes out is partially lithium, and then you refine that lithium up to the point where it's used. I'm oversimplifying, it's a bit more complex than that, but still, that's the principle. Why would you need another metal? Why would you just use that? First reason, it's using a lot of water. When you do that, it means you have to pump brines and groundwater, and to evaporate it in places where quite often they don't have that much water. We're talking of the Atacama Desert in Chile, we're talking of Argentina, we're talking of Bolivia.
We don't have to go that far. I will give you an example in a minute.
No, but for the evaporation ponds, it's there. The biggest part of the lithium in the world comes from that lithium triangle in South America. So that is one thing. The second thing is that it poses ESG constraints because those lands belong to traditional Aboriginal culture, native people from these places. And for long, they haven't been asked if they were fine with people coming and taking the lithium.
Same with the oil. some years ago.
And water scarcity is hitting pretty hard, which means that if you're taking, like in the desert of Atacama, 60% of the water, and you don't let so much for the agriculture and the people living around, it means they can't live in their lands anymore, which is a major problem. And finally, what you said about the price, I mean, price is always a compound of demand and offer. If offer doesn't increase, well, price goes through the roof, and at some point, as Elon Musk as he is, he won't be able to build more batteries. And I think he even came out to Twitter before owning Twitter, saying that he should go into lithium extraction because that was the next big thing.
Is he meanwhile still the CEO of Twitter? Wasn't there something ongoing? I can't remember. But go ahead.
Just to say, those are the reason why we started looking for other ways. And the fact that the price goes through the roof means that it becomes economic to do other stuff. What people swiftly realized, which they knew for a while but it wasn't economic yet, is that when you have geothermal places, most of the time you have lithium.
Where are the biggest geothermal place in Germany and France? Alsace. The Alsace area. And I saw a study, no, it was not a study, it was a report, which was saying, well, exactly that area. If we take everything out of there, we could cover 15% of the lithium demand for Germany, was a German report, if we just take that water. That was interesting. So that means even we have sources. I mean, there was a maximum, right? I mean, it was between 3 and 4% to up to 15 could be possible somehow. But it was interesting to see that even we have lithium here. But think about, for instance, the semicon industry. Even the semicon industry, which have the water, which get the water, even there we can extract all the metals and all the pieces they have in there back. It's just a small portion, but that is money. That is pure money.
If you take Saltworks, so Ben Sparrow was my guest on my podcast.
And might be back soon for a fascinating sequel. Consider subscribing.
One of their main places is that they are mining the semiconductors wastewater for these precious metals and recovering those precious metals. And as you said, it is a win-win-win on steroids, because those places are, I mean, if you take an Intel site in the middle of Arizona, they don't have that much water. So now you're mining their wastewater, which means on one end, you're taking out, of course, the lithium, the nickel, the cobalt, but on the other end, you're also extracting water. And they are very happy to extract water and to be able to reuse it. So it's really a win on all the levels. And that is enabled by this high price of lithium.
That we need these kind of lithium, I think we don't know it since 2 or 3 months. We know this since years. What will happen if the price will go back to 4,000 euros or dollar?
I'm discussing with those companies. I identified right now about 50 companies working in direct lithium extraction. They have different approaches. Every single place will have slightly different composition for that groundwater, sometimes with more lithium, sometimes with more magnesium, sometimes with more manganese, with more cobalt, and some of these parameters might be favorable, some others might be less favorable. So that's the reason why you have so many different companies. They all develop specific processes, and most of the time, I have to say, they are also quite clever. They come together. You see now the development of lithium extraction OEMs, which are doing one specific ion exchanger or one specific membrane treatment and this and that. But they all tell you that there is a threshold for them to be profitable. Exactly. When they are very open, they tell you where that threshold is. When they're a bit less open because you're not yet in bed with them, they just tell you there's a threshold. So if the lithium was to go back from 70,000 to 3,000, many of these direct lithium extraction projects would just not be economic. But it is highly improbable that this happens, because this ESG constraint on the traditional approaches means that you cannot just double the evaporation ponds because you don't have enough water in the region to do that. And even when you look at them, you rather have to downsize them or to look at new ways to produce lithium there as well, meaning mixing fresh water with the water.
Isn't that the same with the fracking? Fracking came up, price was for oil was at high. Fracking came up and everybody, especially in the US and even here in Germany, they were looking for, okay, where can we frack the oil? And all these companies came up, and then the price went down to $50 a barrel and even last 30, and all these companies stopped working, couldn't do anything because it was not economical anymore. Isn't that the same here? So that means is there a fracking, was there a fracking bubble a little bit? I would say yes.
It's a good analogy. The difference I would see with the fracking is that fracking was a new way to serve the same demand. Demand didn't evolve. There wasn't all of a sudden more people wanting gas or oil. Here it's really, there is a bottleneck in the production of batteries. There's a bottleneck in the production of EVs. It's over the bottleneck. You could be building more cars, but you don't have enough battery factories. So now we are building battery factories like hell, but these battery factories cannot work if they don't have lithium, nickel, cobalt, manganese. So you have to develop that as well. So yes, you're adding more to the pot, which means that more production will drive down the cost. But on the other hand, if demand keeps increasing, well, it will drive the cost up again. So will we see a further boom? Probably not. But will we see a crash? I wouldn't bet on that either. But if the processes become more efficient and all of that, I mean, it won't drive eternally the prices up. Now, the beauty of having this new idea to tap into the geothermal is that geothermal is also a source of energy.
Absolutely.
Which was break-even-ish and not always profitable, which was sometimes dangerous. You mentioned Alsace, actually.
Was there earthquake and things like that?
Where I live in Basel, they just banned geothermal drilling because it was generating earthquake. There is a limit to it, but if you...
But you have to live with that. Come on, life is a risk. You told me once, I can't remember anymore. I think it was last month. No, seriously.
It is helping the economics of the project if you can also extract energy, and at the same time you're extracting resources, you also extract energy. It's helping on the two ends. So I guess it is a clever new approach. The other direction in which I think you're right with your analogy with fracking is that shale gas was bringing back natural resources in places where we were absolutely sure that we had no resource. You wouldn't believe that Germany had natural resources once the coal mines were exhausted. Shale gas was the realization that there is a sector to develop again in those countries. Here it's the same. You have the full region of Alberta in Canada, for instance, which used to be like the hotspot for oil and gas. And nowadays there's not so much oil and gas left in the region, but they have the existing infrastructure. And now they realize that they are sitting on huge reserves of brines, which might be used for geothermal and for lithium extraction. So we don't want to paint everything in pink either. There's a country which has 10 years advance on all the countries in the world. It's China. They have
They have what? They have a 10-year advance.
Yeah, they have already the full value chain. They are doing direct lithium extraction. They are refining that lithium. They have the full infrastructure. They are building the batteries. They have everything now in-house. Which means that today, if you had a direct lithium extraction project and you would be extracting that lithium, chances are that you would send it in China for refining because the infrastructure to refine it in other places of the world aren't existing yet. They are under development. So there's also a geopolitical play in all of that, which is at some point, Western countries, developed countries, but also developing countries will have to build their own infrastructure because if not, they will rely quite heavily on China. I'm not an expert in geopolitics, but
too much things are coming from China, so I would be just one more. Honestly saying, especially we here in Europe. Come on.
That one would be like highly strategical.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a strategic movement. I think they started in the EU December or January about these all these metals, all these things we need for digitization, for EV cars and things like that. What we don't have, and there was a kind of movement that we have to have these kind of supply chains. We have to secure the supply chains. We have to have long-lasting contracts with these countries. Not only with China, that we go directly to the source, for instance to Australia, for instance to South America, to ensure that in 15 years we still have access to these metals or to this material, that we can still have our industry working. Because otherwise, I mean, Tesla will stop, and all the Intel, which will is producing in, or let's say is building a new fab here, they all need that. And if Europe wants to stay where it is, at least call it this way, they need to ensure that they can still operate even in crisis situation.
Maybe to wrap up this deep dive, if you're from the water industry, what's the take-home message? Well, I would have several ones. If you're a membrane company, especially working in the fields of high-pressure reverse osmosis or forward osmosis, I know that's a hot topic for you, or simply reverse osmosis, probably graphene membrane or ceramic membranes might be something as well, which has some play. Here, clearly, it's an opportunity for you. If you have a cool ion exchanging technology able to work not only in batches, but kind of continuous, there as well, there's something interesting for you at play. maybe not to become a pure player in that field, but to get involved, get exposed to the existing pilots, look at the existing plans and trying to build something up. If you just try to wrap your head around that topic, I can give you like a teaser, which is that I'm preparing a deep dive on my podcast with several interviews from people across the industry. So that is coming. If you're really in a hurry and you want to start somewhere, I would recommend you to reach out to Blue Tech Research. They've written an intelligence report by Steve Gluck and by Kim Woo, which is covering this lithium economy. It is a very good read. You take 1 hour and you have like the helicopter view on the opportunity, and then you decide what you want to do with that, if you want to dig deeper or not. So that's one read I would recommend. Again, like all the time I'm mentioning the book of Paul. I still don't have a royalty every time I say that, but I have to underline that the good work they are doing. So that would be my personal wrap-up and advice. And if you're an investor, it's a different story. Today, those companies are raising billions, some of them on PowerPoints. So I guess it feeds back to the discussion we had 2 months ago around, is it a venture capital field? Well, DLE might be.
And again, I mean, look at the trend curve always. The trend curve comes with the price of lithium. So if the price of lithium goes down, less people will talk about that. It's the same with the Bitcoin. It's the same with the Bitcoin. I mean, everybody's talking about the Bitcoin if they have a peak. Now they have a low. Nobody's talking about that. But if they're coming back, that is...
that electrification is here to stay. The raw materials don't exist in infinite quantity on Earth. You cannot just mine them eternally.
All I'm saying is that even the investors, they get awake if they see, 72,000. Oh my God, I can make a lot of money if I would have a facility to extract that. But what if back to 5? Let's do one thing. In a year from now, we will check again the lithium market and the lithium price. Because if it really goes down, I have no clue about pricing and where the lithium price will go to. But let's assume in a year from now, maybe we are back to 20,000, and then check again how many companies are in the lithium game.
Okay, let's do that exercise in 1 year. We do like a check, not just on lithium, but on the resource recovery topic. I take the bet with you that it's gonna go up with the same trend, that resource recovery is the next.
I don't think so. I think then we will have established player, less than we have at the moment. Everybody is now concentrating, okay, there's a company, there pops up a new company, there pops up a new company, wants to play in that game. And I think in a year ago, when that really has somehow settled, then we will have some established companies. Maybe they have taken over or merged with the other ones, right? But let's say we have then technologies and companies who really have a clue and they want to play that game and they can handle even the 2,000 or 3,000 price.
Okay, so let's agree to disagree, because I think you're wrong on that, but also because I think that 1 year is not the right time scale. Most of these direct lithium extraction projects, they are on a 10-year timeline and they are preparing themselves for a marathon of raising money. They expect to be raising money over 10 years because they are sometimes in year 3 or 4 over the 10 years course, but all of them are just crossing the chasm of going from pilots to their first drill. And once they've done their first drill, they need to go to the 50th drill. And once they've done the 50th drill, they need to decide what they do. If they build a super factory or if they duplicate that 50 drill somewhere else. But future will tell. I think it's a good idea that you have here to take. Let's check in 1 year where it stands. And for now, I propose you to conclude for today's episode.
But right before that, we have a section we love with Björn. It's a pitch. And if you would like to come and participate, well, just contact us because we would be very happy to accommodate you in the future.
So we've taken the Shark Tank configuration a bit, which we've said we'd like to have a bit more on the show. We have a recurring and returning guest with you, Niclas, today. You were with us 2 months ago, and you have a slightly different topic today, which you will be pitching to us. The scene is yours.
Thank you very much for having you here again. Warm welcome to everybody. I want to talk to you about the topic how to recycle water in the food industry. The food industry is quite water intensive, and we have a solution to provide water with drinking water quality and to save therefore the water intake and reduce the wastewater amount. There are also other benefits like saving the cost of it, replacing all technology which is on site, but What is right now more key to it is ensure site security. This is a big issue, especially in Germany and in the northern part. We have already erected different bigger plants for that application, and we are in the dairy sector. We have cow water treatment, it's called. That's a vapor condensate from the evaporation of milk products. Due to the contamination of the water, it tends to spoil quite fast and it's not really storable. So we have a multiple stage process, which is also quite innovative because in former times, the state-of-the-art system was just a reverse osmosis step to treat this kind of water. But the downside is you really have bad effluent water quality in terms of the organic load, and the water cannot be stored for a longer time. With our technology, we're using biological pretreatment and then different kinds of membrane technology to ensure that the water at the effluent is purified and also is in the right track in terms of the drinking water obedience. As I said, we implemented already several plants for that, also in a big dairy in Western Germany, where we treat 150 cubic meters per hour of this kind of water, can be completely utilized in the production. So that's quite a good benefit because the end customer does not have to separate which kind of quality it's need. We have the solution for that.
You mentioned proprietary. How specific is your technology?
I would say it is the total treatment train. There is multiple stage biological treatment and also the membrane technology. First, we make sure that the organic load is biologically degraded. And then the membrane application adjusts for policy barrier in that way. And therefore, there is no much cleaning needed anymore. We replace it with a multiple stage treatment to use the benefits of the technology and make sure that the water quality is in best condition.
But I think we are talking here not about technology, we're talking about a process, right?
Yeah.
You are having several technologies combined to a process, and that is your approach you're bringing to market.
That's right.
What are these steps? You're always saying multiple steps, but what are these kind of steps?
In the first place, we're using moving bed bioreactors, for example, but this can be also some other systems. This really depends on the contamination of the water. It is, as always, in the industrial wastewater is not always the same. You really have to look how high are the contamination of the organics, and therefore you choose the biological stage and also the membrane stage afterwards, which is normally like an ultrafiltration reverse osmosis system, and then could be additional some disinfection stage afterwards.
So we are talking about an MBBR, UF, RO, disinfection.
In some cases.
In some cases, but that is the process.
That's the process.
It's your solution. What is the unique point?
The unique point is really how to operate that proper in that conditions, because cow water or vapor condensate is quite low in contamination, so you really put a lot of stress to the bacteria, to the biomass, and it's, you can say, really harsh conditions. We're building an atmosphere around that the organisms can work in their best conditions and really doing the job. And this was quite a challenge. We made that work.
You mentioned several references. How many do you have?
We have 3 now.
And do you see an acceleration in that market?
Of course, yeah. Especially as there is some new research for also other kinds of condensate treatment. So we have for skim milk, we also now putting into place whey condensate. We also will introduce permeate, which is also a quite big stream in some dairies. We have a lot of research going on. We're building up more competence, but already proved that we have that done with skim milk, for example.
Is there one single action you want the people watching this to do? You have 30 seconds. The camera is here. Tell them.
If you're a person from the food industry, I would be real welcome if you contact us and want to make sure that you will save drinking water and wastewater. If you like to, we come visit you at your place, have a look to your side streams and maybe also your main wastewater, make a validation if this is a feasible case for you, that you can save on the one side money and on the other hand reduce the impact to the environment.
Thank you very much, Niclas.
It was great to have you back. See you soon.
Thank you very much.
That was a cool pitch, right?
That was interesting to see how they combine all the technologies in this process for this application.
And you know what I was thinking? I want more of those.
You mean more of these pitches?
Yes.
So you have heard, Antoine, guys. If you have something cool you want to pitch in our show, we give you the 3 minutes. We can play Shark Tank with you, and we are nice sharks, are we?
I think we are quite nice.
So,
also asking the questions which sound natural to us, but you see that we also play fair game in the sense that we give you the opportunity, face cam, to look in the eye your investors, customers, leads, and tell them what you want to convey as a key message. So come use that platform. It's yours. I mean, that
reach
show
out
is
to
yours.
reach out to us, please. We give you the chance. So
And if you want to do that already next month, well, reach out to us and we might invite you anytime soon.
nobody's watching the end.
Yeah.